Thomas here, and this is the In the Mix holiday special. Now, I am definitely trying to channel my inner Sinatra here. You might ask why? Number one, it's a special, so I felt I should probably put on a different hat. Number two, how could you not want to emulate an artist like Frank Sinatra? The man not only made the most iconic music to this day, but he also starred in motion pictures. But in just acting movies, he won Academy Awards. He could do everything from drama to comedy and everything in between. When I do the In the Mix show or the Justin Thomas show, I try to be a little bit of a Renaissance man myself. I like to try to use all the tools I have in my skill set. Now, I don't have a voice like Frank, but I try to use what I have. And if I don't have it, we try to bring in special guests, as we do on In the Mix, and as we will do for this special. We will be covering some of the top stories in the fandoms today. Everything from what I'm referring to as Carlgate, the backlash from the Walking Dead fans with the death of Carl Grimes, to net neutrality, a highly debated topic that could very possibly drastically change the way we view our content. And also the ongoing power struggle in Hollywood when we look at the Disney and Fox deal, and the battle of the streaming services, along with a special never seen before reaction from Broke Black Man 94 and some Christmas trivia from Milt K. We'll also be joined by some of the best creators out there who were kind enough to send their holiday wishes in.
Hi everyone, this is Robert from Indie Geek, wishing you the happiest of holidays. Have a great break, and may 2018 be an amazing year for you. Take care, and I'll see you soon.
Merry Christmas!
Alright, we are jumping into our first segment of the night. Walking Dead will be on far after we're all dead, which is a good thing, I guess. Yeah. It shows dedication on their part. I don't know. Well, before we jump into it, let's talk about the panelist. First off, we have our Australian friend, the delightful Andrew. He's definitely more informed than any Walking Dead YouTuber I've ever seen, and he doesn't even have a YouTube channel, which is good for me. Yeah, don't get a YouTube channel, Andrew. Andrew is a comic enthusiast, but also very, very well informed about the show, very well versed. He always has great input, and we're always happy to have him on, especially since he usually has to be on until the late hours of the morning, because I don't understand time difference. Next up, we have Milt K. Definitely boasting the highest education level of the In the Mix crew. He came on, as most people do, as a guest exploration geophysicist to talk about Game of Thrones. A very common thing. Check in the link. That happened twice. Told you, we try to be different. Milt is a comic enthusiast first and show watcher after, but does not let his bias get into his opinion and stays level-headed, and we mostly agree. And when we disagree, we always disagree to disagree. And last but not least, the man that makes sure to be on every stream that he can possibly be on, Broke Black Man 94. We reached out to a number of talented content creators who we personally enjoy, and we know you guys most likely will too, and asked them to send their holiday wishes out to you guys. Earlier, we saw Indie Geek send his wishes over, which I couldn't be more proud to have him on this channel. And now, yet another great content creator, Azora Hype.
Hey everyone, it's Azora Hype here, wishing you a holly jolly Christmas. And really, I just want to wish all of you a happy holidays. From my family to yours, be safe, be eating lots of good food, have a good time, and most of all, don't stress. Happy holidays, and may the old gods and the new watch over you.
Alright everybody, welcome to our first official segment where we will be doing a roundtable discussion on the Walking Dead situation and me pretty much trying to come to terms with understanding that people give such a fuck about Carl. Chandler Riggs lost his job and everybody seems to care about Chandler Riggs now. This huge departure from the comic seems to be bothering even the casual fans, so we're going to talk about it. And we are recording, so holiday special. There you go. We will be talking about The Walking Dead and what I'm referring to as Carlgate. The situation with Chandler Riggs where he lost his job evidently, and a lot of people like Chandler Riggs out of nowhere now, and it seems to be an issue. I didn't know losing your job made you so likable. That's not my personal experience, but we are going to be talking about what these two gentlemen and myself thought about the first half of the season, and we are going to be talking about Chandler Riggs specifically, and these two guys read all the comics, so we're going to be getting some insight from that too. Andrew, I'd like to welcome you to the show all the way from Australia. We're recording this on a Saturday in the real world America, and it is already the future in Australia, and so I guess Merry Christmas Eve to you, mate.
Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, and Happy Festivus to us all. It's a great time of year, and I'm glad to be on the show, and I'm glad to talk about one of my favorite things, The Walking Dead. So thanks for having me.
No problem. How does it feel in this day and age to say my favorite thing, The Walking Dead? That used to be such a proud thing to say for people. Is it still a proud thing for you to say?
Totally. I have not lost faith in The Walking Dead. I still love this show. I think a lot of people out there these days, it's popular to hate shit now. You know, it's just the cool thing to do, just dislike everything. I'm a lover. I'm here to talk about the things I love about The Walking Dead, not what I hate about it. There's plenty of good things still going on, and there's plenty of good things still to come.
Enjoy. And when we live in such a world, why not enjoy The Walking Dead? Milt, how are you today over in Texas, the most America part of America?
I am doing swell, Justin and Andrew. Thanks for having me. Just want to wish everybody happy holidays, season's greetings, and Merry Christmas. Hope you spend a great time with your loved ones wherever you are. And as usual, always glad to be here as the voice of reason and pragmatism, as well as being the resident hater of the team.
Just a dishonest person in general. Talking about what we liked, what we disliked. Did it meet our expectations? Are we finished with The Walking Dead like many people are saying? Are we just content like some of us may be? I want to hear all the ins and outs. These two gentlemen are quite versed in the topic, so I'm very excited to hear it. So Andrew, happy, unhappy? Did it fulfill all your hopes? Because this is a big season, all out war. I mean, did you think, first off, when the show started, that we'd ever get to this point? And now that we've gotten to this point, are you happy with the outcome so far?
Look, I'm pretty happy with the way that most of The Walking Dead has gone. Every season's had its downfalls in different spots. But, you know, I feel this season has been misinterpreted by a lot of people where I actually liked it. I thought it was covering a lot of the comic stuff, and it really liked actually how they made the flow of things go. I loved having Shiva. She was just the most amazing thing in the show. I was always concerned about how they were going to do her, from what you see in the comic books, and you're just like, is this even going to look good on TV? And I think they pulled it off, and that the death scene really got got me going. I was, but I am an animal lover, so so I did think they've had some pretty impactful stuff this season. There's emotional stuff with Daryl. Maggie's character, it's grown so much. Since Glenn's toughened, so there's a lot of good things to talk about. But in perspective, of course,
the pacing, obviously last season it was not up to par. I don't think there's very many people happy with it. And the Shiva is also a good point, because I think that people really underestimate the difficulty from bringing something from the panel of a comic book to the big screen. And I do agree it was done well. Now, as far as pacing goes, I do agree with you for the most part, but I would like to hear maybe one that you wished it would have went a little bit different.
Hard to say, really. I think I'm a Negan lover, but probably even the Negan episode with Father Gabriel was probably not as lived up to my hopes as it did. We got to see Negan in the first episode, and then he's gone, and he's the new the new major character, and this is who we want to see in all the episodes, and we don't see him again. And then all of a sudden it was this slow kind of scene, and it made a point, and it told a story, but I kind of wanted more out of that episode, of all of the episodes.
Yeah, I think that's a valid point. I really loved the interaction with Gabriel. I think that surprisingly, I would definitely pick the episode 2. It was where they had the elongated action sequences where we had attacks on all fronts, and that was when it ends with Ezekiel in the kingdom being almost annihilated.
Mm.
I believe that was episode 2, correct? There's a lot of action.
Yeah,
where Eric dies. That's the boyfriend,
big loss,
right?
Yeah.
Big loss.
Yeah. Nobody gives a fuck about him. I was like, oh no, not Eric. Yeah.
Episode 2.
I think so, because the first episode you have the whole let's go up and kill Negan.
Yeah.
You got the opportunity to kill Negan, so let's not do that. And then episode 2 was like the plan being acted out, but I had a big issue with it because I thought that they really showed that they were not, and Gimple mentioned in Talking Dead that they only had 8 days to do it, so that you can definitely tell he wasn't too happy with the outcome, because they had never done big action scenes like that. We were having like full on like 20 on 20. They just couldn't. The production, just couldn't deal with that size. I wasn't really aware of like where they were attacking. You know what I mean? Like they could have had a scene where it was them like over a map, showing where they're at. But obviously we know they were attacking establishments. But I think that Walking Dead put too much faith in the intelligence of their fans, which is something weird to say.
Yeah.
But about you, Milt, what was your favorite episode? What was your least favorite episode? And what was your general feeling about the first half of season 8 All Out War?
I know, honestly, I love this. I love the season in general. I think it was very action packed. I think it was consistent with the storylines in the comics. I really liked the nonstop action of of basically the war against the Saviors. I think it was well thought out in terms of how they banded together in a realistic way to basically go after these guys. Compared to previous seasons, this season has been twice as good as probably last season, and at least 10 times as better as The Last Jedi. F you, Disney, for stealing my $20. And the acting's been good. The deaths have been consistent, mostly with the comics. Shiva dying is, probably a blow to all the PETA activists out there, but, it was consistent with the storyline. The biggest twist, obviously, is what we're getting to later, is Carlgate. But it's, I liked it. I mean, from a Walking Dead fan's point of view, I think it's been well done. From a new person just getting into The Walking Dead, it may not be as satisfactory because there hasn't been as much character development this season. I mean, we've only really had one episode of true character development, and that was probably, I think it was like 2 episodes ago, where they were dealing with the aftermath of the kingdom falling apart. Rick was dealing with the aftermath of, I think, being in the trash can, with the garbage people, or dumpster, or whatever. And I think there was one more scene with the Hilltop and dealing with the prisoners in the Hilltop, and Maggie's, character development there, and Jesus's character development there. But in general, I liked it. Favorite episode is probably going to be the first 2 or 3 episodes. It's kind of a blur because the first 3 episodes were just basically nonstop action, right? It's basically about, Alexandria, the Hilltop, and the kingdom basically formulating this plan and basically kicking the Savior's ass. And it wasn't until their own terrorists screwed the whole thing up that we got to the point where we are right now with the good guys being in danger.
Yeah, I agree. As soon as I asked Andrew that question, I started to think myself what I was going to pick, and I was like, "Oh shit, that's a really hard, question to answer," because I think it speaks to it being, well, paced out, because last season we knew what episode was what, because it literally was like, that's the Oceanside episode. That's the episode where, they were only at the hilltop. So that does show, a mix. It, I think that it was a little bit too hectic, and they should have slowed it down, because like you said, it has a very valid point about if you were just like tuning in for this season, you would not, you would see the show as like a cheap, like action, series, because this is the payoff for these story arcs. All the emotion has led to this rage, and now I think we're gonna arc back down, especially with the Carl Gate and Maggie's turn to with the prisoner kill. I would say, I guess if I had to pick a favorite episode, I would pick damn, that's such a, why'd I ask that question? It's kind of hard. I really enjoy, and I think this was the second episode, which I hated everything about it, except for that was the episode where Morales popped up at the end, right? Because they're trying to get these big guns. Yeah, but I am a huge fan, because one of what they do well with action, those gritty battles with Rick. Those throat biting. Andrew Lincoln is one hell of a physical actor, and those fight scenes are so realistic in most cases. I mean, the eye gouging, the just, you can see him shoving his thumb into the throat, the biting, the whimpering, of like what happens. Everybody thinks of fights, and I was a boxer, oh, it's going to be this awesome thing, and then you get into like a fight, and it's just like, it's horrible. It's a horrible, scarring experience, because you're being bludgeoned or bludgeoning somebody to death, and it's sloppy as all hell. It's not a movie where you're like, ducking and weaving. It's not sparring. So it's putting a guy's head on a hook. I have never killed anybody. I just want to say that. But I really think that they do those personal scenes well, and they don't do a lot of shaky cam or anything. So that I really loved that. I hated the Morales thing, but really love that. Now, I do have some issues. He blatantly says that all he had to do is kill Negan. Now, do either one of you, really quick, think that it would have been impossible for him to kill Negan when Negan stepped out, right when they pulled up at first? Really quick.
Well, I mean, yeah. I think he was not in a position to kill them right there and then, because he had all his allies with him, right? And you don't want to kill a leader of a group in front of other subjects in that way. It makes you kind of look like a coward, right? Because presumably you're under kind of like a flag of truce at that time. So, I mean, what that would do is just probably stir up a lot more hatred, towards each other, and it would have been just a big old melee at that time if they decided to shoot him down at that point.
For sure.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, the Hilltop, Alexandria, and the Kingdom, they're basically posing themselves as having a high moral standard versus the saviors, right? And to do that would be totally against that impression that they're trying to portray.
I get the psychology behind it, but I just, I have a few issues with it, because number one, even though I can see the other side of the story, and, they viciously murdered people in their sleep, and that's why the Glenn and Abraham situation happened. But let's think about that for a moment. I mean, they played games. They just didn't, get their revenge. They stopped a pregnant woman from getting to the doctor. They toyed with them like they were animals before they let it happen. And as far as the shooting Negan and then having, then they lose that whole shtick about, we're not like him, we really want peace, we're not just here to take over, we want to just rid you of your problem. So I do understand that to a point. I find it a little bit hard to believe that Rick emotionally just wouldn't shoot, or especially Maggie. I thought, like, she's just going to shoot. That'd be awesome. But also they pulled up, and I didn't see it as a white flag situation as much, especially because I don't think that they were in danger. I mean, I guess what you're saying is the danger would have been the like political, kickback from it. But also, Negan was that sure that he decided without even thinking to walk out there. You know what I mean? That's a little unbelievable to me. Like, maybe Rick knew he wasn't going to shoot him, but that was a little bit. He's like, well, let's see what they want. Looks like they, you know what I mean? And he just walked, and the captains walked right out there. I'm like, no, let's like yell to them. You know what I mean? Like, he walked out there knowing, he's like, nope, with the game they're playing, they're not going to kill me right now. You know, that's a big gamble. You're rolling the dice on that. You're like, well, I hope his moral compass is fucking in tune today, because, I did, I really like how Negan says that Rick gets people killed and Negan kills people, and that is true. Kind of a little bit of a paradox too. It's neither is great, but
I mean, yeah. But ever since we've met Negan, ever since he's appeared in the show, he's always been. I mean, that's been his MO, right? I mean, he stood out in front of the gates of Alexandria last season, right? He could have been shot dead right there too. That's just. I mean, that's his shtick, right? He's just so self-confident, or his character is just so self-confident, that he'll do those type of things. That's totally consistent with his character that's been developed so far in the show.
He's 10 foot tall and bulletproof. He doesn't think anyone can get him.
Yeah.
Like he said to Gabriel, he'll survive this world because he's just that fucking good,
Yeah. Yeah, and he's quick with that baseball bat. I really wish he never would have done that. Because that's some hocus pocus shit. So, okay. I still do find it, I totally agree with you guys, and it totally meets like with mentally where these characters have been. In speaking about mentally where people have been back, I do have another issue. Remember the last time excuse me. I do have another issue. Remember the last time that we saw Carl before this season? He was he went to the sanctuary, and from what I remember, he was very violent, right? And wanted to kill everybody, correct? And then he came back. I mean, would you say that Carl was violent till the end last season? I definitely would say that he was, right?
I think Carl's character has completely changed from that moment that he was with Negan. I think it was a life-changing thing from there on, and he's applied this completely different way of life since. And we obviously see who he is right up until the mid-season finale.
But then at the season finale, he's the one that starts. He makes the first move and he caps. I mean, of course they're being threatened, but he's there with the gun, and he caps, like, it was pretty sweet. He caps like 7 people. Like, he's the one that like got the jump on him. I that's the best argument I've heard. But Carl has done something that I really do not appreciate when it comes to a story, and that is he went through a major character change, in my opinion, off screen, and for really no solid explanation. The best one is the Negan one, but I think I would have to rewatch. And of course, yes, his life was saved or whatever. But I mean, he was still a pretty angry kid and pretty set on, killing everybody. And now we came back and different Carl. What do you think, Milt?
I mean, Carl's story arc is kind of interesting in the sense that he's still a kid, right? So if you take into account the fact that he is a teenager, you have hormones raging over the place. Yeah, I mean, actions are going to be very inconsistent. There is no consistency in a character of a teenager, right? Wild emotional swings. So from that point of view, I mean, I'm not saying that the story writers are actually taking this into account, because I don't think they're that bright. But from a typical teenager's point of view, it makes sense for him to have these wild emotional swings and different different ways of dealing with certain situations. I would say, though, is that at least from this season on, is that I can believe his character change in the sense that he is seeing things that are going drastically wrong with his dad. His dad's becoming more violent and more dark, and he's trying to switch the other way. In fact, I'd like to talk about this a little bit more towards the end, but I think there is basically right now 2 different forces trying to sway Rick's decisions, right? You have the dark forces, which consists of Darrow now, and Tara, with the forces of light, which is trying to swing him back into being a little bit more merciful, which is, I think, Maggie and Carl. And we can get back into that stuff later on, because I think that's a really interesting dichotomy as to what's happening in the actual, alliance group. But no. I mean, I'm perfectly fine with Carl's basically character changes, if you will, because that I think would be expected from a teenage boy.
Yeah, I mean, I guess we'll call it a Freaky Friday situation where he switch. I think that obviously you're both correct with all the trauma and stuff that he's experienced, and he's seen his father. That he's seen so much. Obviously, I just personally, and not to sound like elitist, but I would have wrote in like just one simple dream sequence when he wakes up in sweats of him, like doing the flashbacks of the mom. The capping of all the people he's capped, and I think that would have been a simple and a quick way, especially because if you want to look at it from a production standpoint, you can have Chandler Riggs, who's acting as questionable, lay in a bed, and you can recycle scenes. And you know what I mean? Like I would appreciate stuff like that. I don't think that we should be expected to like have to justify it or head like and that's, I talk about this a lot. I think that a lot of us are really good at it. Like Andrew didn't know that question was coming. He had a quick fire answer. It's like a lawyer for the show. It's like, well, after the Negan incident, this is why. It's. I think that it should be shown on screen to a point. Something. I mean, it's not that big of a deal, but there was a pretty drastic change. I mean, he was pretty bloodthirsty still at the end, but I mean, valid points. And yes, we will address that at the end, Milt. I think that those are good ideas. I actually had the same idea, so I would like to take credit for them. No, we will do it. We'll cut that part. So let's.
Thank you, Justin.
I would say, yeah, whatever, man. I forgot what you said we were going to talk about, anyways. No, I think that it's a valid point. Change with Carl. Another one is Michonne. Before we move on, what is the reasoning for her not being utilized? Did you guys find that weird? Is it because she got beat up? That was another one that I mean, there's far more of a reason, like at least a visual, reason she for some reason got the shit kicked out of her. But her just sitting around at Alexandria, that ain't Michonne. What do you guys think's going on with her?
I honestly think it had everything to do with the Black Panther contract. I think that she was busy on the set of that, and obviously probably carrying across with the. I think that she was busy on the set of that, and obviously probably carrying across with the new Avengers film, and kind of got written in that she wasn't working as much on set for the first 8 episodes, and you probably see her more in the next 8 episodes.
I literally forgot that she was in Marvel's Black Panther. So when you first said that, I thought you were just implying that she was part of a racist radical group, and that was taking up all her time. And I wanted to say, want to know what? I'm a modern white man that might identify.
Yeah, so it makes sense for her to stay behind in Alexandria while everybody else is fighting. So it's a question of timeline, right? I mean, no, it was 3 months after the siege of Alexandria from last season. Yeah, then you start to question why she's not doing her bit, fighting this war. But my feeling is that this was a short continuation of last season, and this all-out war happened probably a couple of weeks after the events of last season.
I would say month and a half max. And that's max, I would say a couple of weeks. Because I mean, we do see the process for the most part.
Yeah.
And you got to figure if you are going to think about it, the psychology behind it, that you would want to take that, because you're forcing a whole bunch of freaking people that, they're not soldiers to go with a bunch of guns and kill people. You're going to want to use that momentum you got off that, that end little skirmish you had where they did, I guess, technically win. You don't want to have people sit around and wait for a while to think about the people they killed or, being killed. You want to get them where that blood's still hot. I think that Andrews, I didn't even have max. And that's max, I would say a couple of weeks. Because I mean, we do see the process for the most part.
Yeah.
And you got to figure if you are going to think about it, the psychology behind it, that you would want to take that, because you're forcing a whole bunch of freaking people that, they're not soldiers to go with a bunch of guns and kill people. You're going to want to use that momentum you got off that, that end little skirmish you had where they did, I guess, technically win. You don't want to have people sit around and wait for a while to think about the people they killed or, being killed. You want to get them where that blood's still hot. I think that Andrews, I didn't even realize that she was on another thing, but yep, sometimes it is just that, you look at that IMDb and you realize, well, that's because she was working and making some money on something else. It does kind of suck though, because I think most of us would agree it is out of character for her not to be in action.